Hello again, everybody. Gary Ferman and Matt Shodell here, and today we are talking about second team deficiencies on the offensive side of the football for the Miami Hurricanes that need to be addressed as the team prepares to begin training camp in August. And Matt, no better place to begin this conversation than at the quarterback position, because the Miami Hurricanes have to decide definitively who their backup quarterback is going to be. And I'm not sure they're going to do that because it's a difficult situation. It's a potentially messy situation. We'll talk about that. And the truth of the matter is, you do not have to declare a true number two unless number one has to come out of the game. And we learned last year what a disaster that would be for the Hurricanes. And I think that that's the case again. But for the purposes of this conversation here right now, we are talking about Jacurri Brown, the athletic quarterback who played a little bit last year, now is in his second season. And we're talking about true freshman Emory Williams, who burst onto the scene for spring practice this past April and did fairly well, to the point where I believe that he is a legitimate contender here as training camp prepares to open to be Miami's second team quarterback. And, we're calling it a deficiency. Well, when you don't have a proven guy that is a second teamer there, that could be classified as a deficiency unless somebody steps up in just an ungodly way. And Matt, all eyes are going to be on these two young quarterbacks in the spring. Everybody knows Tyler Van Dyke is the starter. Big question is going to be, who's the backup?
Yeah, behind the scenes, after the spring, Miami was quietly trying to find a young portal quarterback, much like they did at running back, getting a Jay Allen from Nebraska, because they know that there's right now one quarterback, and besides that, you want as many guys that can maybe play and show up on game day as you can, because Jacurri, as we saw last year, had accuracy issues, and Shannon Dawson was asked about it in the spring, and he literally said to us, I can't fix accuracy. I can fix technique. I can fix teaching, but I can't fix accuracy. Like, that's just something either you're accurate or you're not. And Jacurri Brown is not accurate. He never has been. He wasn't in high school. We talked to his private quarterback coach when he was in high school, who plainly told us, he had accuracy problems. It's continued in college. And, this fall is going to be the last chance for Jacurri, because in the spring game, you saw it again. I mean, he just couldn't throw a pass on target consistently. If he can't do that in fall camp, the writing's on the wall for him. Like, this is it. Emory Williams will be the guy, because Emory Williams does have accuracy. Again, if that's something you can't teach, well, Emory has it. Now, what Emory doesn't have is Jacurri's arm strength, Jacurri's mobility, and every other intangible you want in an NFL dual threat quarterback.
Jacurri has arm strength, but he doesn't have the mobility.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah. And Jacurri has off the charts arm strength. That's why I'm saying that. So, the issue is it's really hard to have a quarterback that doesn't throw accurately. It demoralizes your receivers. It demoralizes your tight ends. It demoralizes your team, quite frankly. If a guy's open and you just bounce the ball 10 yards in front of him, even once out of every 6 or 7 throws, that's not okay at this level of football. So Jacurri has to show that consistency. And regardless whether they announce a second-team quarterback or not, everyone's going to know who the second-team quarterback is. Because if Jacurri's bouncing the ball in front of guys and can't hit targets, he's not going to be your backup quarterback. It was a disaster last year when he was dropping back trying to pass the ball. The only thing that really got him out of it was that he could run, and he ran pretty darn well. But you don't want, in this offense in particular, like Josh Gaddis' offense, if they had a good offensive line, believe it or not, they probably could have masked not being able to throw the ball. But with that offensive line last year, they could not mask it. This year, they have a much better offensive line. They can mask it better, but Shannon Dawson's offense is not built really for designed runs by the quarterback. Certainly, you could point to last year with his quarterback Toon rushing for a ton of yards. A lot of that was just scramble yards. But his offense really is built to just throw the ball down the field. That's what it's built to do. And then mix in a power run game as the hybrid part of it, if you want to call it that. But an air raid offense is not typically based on the quarterback running the ball all the time, So to me, regardless if they tell us or not who the backup quarterback is, it's going to be obvious to the players on the team based on what they see every day in practice. And it's going to be obvious, when the first guy goes in in a blowout in the first or second game of the year, they don't put in the third team quarterback after Tyler Van Dyke first. They put in the second team quarterback first. So when Miami's up 60-0 against Bethune or whatever, whoever comes in next, that's your backup quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. That if they say afterwards, oh no, they're even. That's what they'll say, right? They're even. They're battling it every day. Every day it's a new depth chart at quarterback for the backups. Whatever. Don't believe that crap. They always talk about that, how every day the depth chart changes. It's not true. Don't believe the hype. So the dictators in charge of the football program, their message is not always the truth to the public, and in particular, they don't want depth charts out there because players don't like to hear they're a third or fourth teamer, especially in this transfer portal age. It used to be, who cares? You're a fourth teamer, you better work your butt off to become a first teamer, because they had nowhere to go. If you try to transfer, first of all, you're a fourth teamer for a reason. Second of all, you have to sit out a year wherever you try to transfer to. Most schools don't really love having a waste a scholarship spot on a guy who's just going to sit on the bench for a year. So that's not the case anymore. And it's going to be really interesting to see if Ja'Cory can be accurate. Because if he can be accurate, he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion. But again, like Shannon Dawson said, can't teach it. He's got to just figure it out himself somehow. I don't know if it's a mental thing, whatever it is, he's got to figure it out.
Well, I'm going to say Matt Shodell for president, believe it or not, because you said something.
I don't want to be president. I want to be dictator. I don't want to be president.
I don't know, man, but you just gave
Matt Shodell for dictator.
You gave a long speech there, but somewhere in the early parts of it, you made a great point, and you related it to the other guys on the offense, okay? And I think this is really important because you're putting in a new offensive scheme that is designed to take advantage of all your playmakers that you feel like you're putting all over the field. The Ray Josephs of the world, Restrepo, you got Tyler Harrell coming in with all that speed, Jacoby George, Colby Young, all these guys are hoping to have good seasons this year. And if you put a quarterback into the game that is not an accurate thrower, who cannot get them the ball, and they are running pass routes for no purpose, then the entire offense, morale, success rates, everything just goes down the tubes. So I think very early in training camp, the first thing that is going to have to be determined is, can Ja'Cory Brown in his second year deliver the ball accurately? Okay. If he can, he will be the number 2 quarterback going into the season. Now, if he cannot, I don't believe he will be, Matt, because I believe that if Tyler Van Dyke has to come out of the game, that Emory Williams at that point, even though he is not as athletic as Ja'Cory, that he doesn't have the elite athletic ability of Ja'Cory, becomes the clear-cut choice to be the number 2 quarterback, except for one thing. If you name him the clear-cut choice to be the number 2 quarterback, Ja'Cory Brown might not even stick around to compete in spring practice next year to be the starter if Tyler Van Dyke happens to have a good season and leave, which is hopefully highly probable. So this is a sticky situation. It's a delicate situation. I feel very strongly about one thing. These coaches are not going to play favorites. These coaches, they have to win football games. They're going to have to be able to sustain the injuries that you always come up with in football. You hope one of them is not TBD, but if it is, they are going to put the guy out on the field that they feel, in my opinion, can run Shannon Dawson's offense the best. To be able to do that, Ja'Cory Brown is going to have to be able to pass the ball more effectively and consistently than he has at any point yet in his time at Miami. So this is going to be a very interesting battle to watch in training camp, without question. And even though you're hopeful that you don't have to use either one of those guys as backups, it's very important that, as it pertains to our subject today, that the backup quarterback position is not a deficiency. And we will see how that goes from there. All right, Matt, let's shift gears to the running backs. We don't even know who the dang starter is going to be. How are we supposed to talk about backups being deficiencies? I feel like they have enough depth now at running back that however the depth chart shakes out coming out of camp here in a few weeks, it'll be okay. I like the fact that you don't have to count on Henry Parrish to be a workhorse anymore. That did not go well in 2022. He was banged up very early in the season, really after the Texas A&M game. He is not big enough physically to sustain the pounding of the entire season as a number one. Might be a solid number two, but I think you're hoping that Mark Fletcher can play a big role. Obviously, I think Don Chaney is getting a little bit of a wake-up call here. I think Jay Allen, the transfer from Nebraska, is going to get a big look to be in the rotation here. So there's a lot of bodies, Matt, regardless of how the depth chart shakes out. So I'm going to say running back, second team is not a deficiency. Your thoughts?
I don't really view it the way you do, whether it's a deficiency or not. But to me, here's my thing. I think that the running back depth, I think that Henry Parrish is going to be a backup. So I think the backup situation is just fine. If Henry Parrish is the starting running back and the featured back, that would be a really bad sign for the rest of this running backs room. But, Don Chaney couldn't even get a glimpse of the first team in the spring, so I don't think he's going to be in the equation. Travante Citizen remains out to start fall practice, is my understanding. Jay Allen was supposed to have a big role at Nebraska this coming season, was buried down the depth chart all spring, which is why he left. So, if he starts, that's our best running back now is the third, fourth teamer at Nebraska from the spring. That's not a great sign either. So to me, it all hinges on, and Christopher Johnson to me is at best a third down back his freshman year, or just to change the pace back. So it all hinges on Mark Fletcher to me. Mark Fletcher has to stay healthy. Mark Fletcher has to prove that he can start. And I think he should be a featured back. He's certainly big enough to handle that kind of load. And if he is, then the depth is going to be great because you have all these other guys who can just work in behind him, like I just said, for a change of pace with Christopher Johnson. Certainly Henry Parrish is more than good enough to get 5 to 10 carries a game. That's where I think he should be. 5-10 carries a game, couple of catches, and get him out of there. That's what his role should be. I mean, I'm sorry to Henry Parrish fans and the Henry Parrish family, but that's how he's built, and it's okay. There's plenty of guys in the NFL that have the same role that are just smaller backs. They can make their plays when they need to.
All right, wide receiver. There's more numbers there because you got more guys that are going to be playing. But a pretty similar situation to running back. You got a lot of guys that could fill a lot of different roles there. So however the depth chart shakes out is great, but I don't think that we would call the backups at wide receiver a deficiency either. I think they have enough guys there that they can work it out.
The starters are the deficiency. So how are the backups not a deficiency? Explain that to me. What's
a whole team of backups? No,
that's what they have.
I think these guys are going to step up a little bit. I really do.
I mean, Tyler Van Dyke will make them look good.
Yeah,
but these are not receivers.
I think the system is going to make them look good too.
The offense will make them look good, but this group of receivers is just okay. It's just okay. You can believe in Xavier
Johnson there. There's no Michael Irvin there for sure.
Yeah, there's nobody where you saw last year, the prior year in the spring game where you say, wow, they just can't stop that guy. And the great players, that you can't stop them. When you have them, in practice. We've seen practices. Okay, we've seen spring games for God knows how many years, Gary dating back to the 1920s. And you can tell. You can just look at these guys and you can see the physicality and the speed combination and the athleticism and the route running and the hand. These guys, they might have 1 or 2 of those 4 or 5 features. They don't have 3, 4, or 5 of them. Xavier Restrepo runs great short routes. He'll have 100 catches for 120 yards on the season. I'm exaggerating. But he'll have a bunch of short catches, Then there's guys like Tyler Harrell. His best season was 500-something yards at Louisville, which is great. I could see him having some long touchdowns on the year, but I don't see him running routes across the middle and converting third downs on those plays. Colby Young, I can see converting third downs, making some catches, on the sidelines sort of thing, but I don't see him as a 1,000-yard receiver. There's no receiver I see in this roster where you say, this guy's definitely going to get even 600 yards receiving. Now, as a unit, maybe they'll combine and be decent and good enough, especially with Tyler Van Dyke throwing the ball. But if it wasn't Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback, we'd be saying, this receiver group's not real good. Great quarterbacks make the receivers look better than they are, and this is an average receiver group, whether you want to believe it or not.
All right, so you are concerned. We'll find out if that's legitimate or not as
they know it. They brought in Shamar Kirk from junior college just because they already had like 10 returning receivers. They're like, we need a junior college receiver who maybe can do something for us. They brought in Tyler Harrell, who Alabama jettisoned after a year. Like, not that Tyler Harrell can't be great. I know he has 4.24 speed. He'll probably be the number one receiver on this team. But like, this is where they're at. Like, when you take two receivers that could both start off a spring ball that come into the team, and you're saying both of these guys maybe will be the starter, it's telling you the other 10 guys aren't real good. So like, don't belittle me like I'm the crazy one.
I didn't belittle you. I said time will tell if it's.
I can tell you were belittling me.
No, I was not belittling.
Look up the definition of belittle. That's what you were doing.
All right, let's. The tight end position, I think, would kind of fall in the same class as running back and receiver. You brought in Cam McCormick, who I'm presuming will be the first down tight end pretty consistently because he helps you in the run game. Not as big of a factor in the passing game as Arroyo would likely be, or Riley Williams might be, or Jaleel Skinner. But I'm assuming that he's going to be the starting tight end because he brings that blocking element as well. But Matt, so if that's the way it plays out, when you got Arroyo, when you got Riley Williams, when you got Jaleel Skinner, I don't think you could call the second team of tight end a deficiency either. I like all those guys.
They have a very bright future, but just looking at this year, if you consider your starters, Cam McCormick and maybe Elijah Arroyo as co-starters, I'm not really sold yet Jaleel Skinner can catch the ball. I know he can, get open and he's really fast and makes, can run past guys, but he's not consistent holding onto the ball yet. I haven't seen it. So I don't know that he's going to be a great option right now. And then you're talking about true freshmen where, yeah, they can get great reviews from the coaching staff. Oh my gosh, this guy's going to be amazing. But as a true freshman playing tight end, there's always going to be issues with blocking and leverage and that sort of thing. Maybe they can make some catches or whatever, but you just don't know what you really got. So I would put the tight end situation at average behind the starters, honestly. And I'm not sure the starters I'd put as slightly above average at tight end. And, I think it's honestly, I think Will Mallory would be by far the best tight end on this roster if he was back this year. I think he would be head and shoulders still the starter and the every down back and the every down tight end. And it's not like he was breaking any records here, So, I'm not going to just sugarcoat it and be like, oh, yeah, these tight ends are going to be so much better than last year. Like, no, Will Mallory is still better than what I've seen from these guys.
Of course you're not going to sugarcoat it. Why would you sugarcoat anything? This is giving you an excuse to be the negative Nancy that you always are. But now I am going to race like Secretariat to the next position group because I think this justifiably gives you what in that? Wait a minute. Lift that glass again. No, lift it diagonally like you did. What is that yellow? There's like a yellow speck. What? Are you drinking raw eggs?
No. Good guess.
There's like a yellow speck at the bottom of that glass.
If you must know, my new drink of choice is ginger beer, which, believe it or not, is non-alcoholic. So I drink ginger beer and then I throw in, because it's so what's the word? Strong, bitter? I don't know. So I throw in, I got a giant bag of of candied ginger, I guess you call it. And I throw like 3 or 4 pieces in there to sort of ease off on the bitterness of the ginger beer. That's all.
Oh my God. That's supposed to be a mixer.
I'm a weird dude. Like, what do you want from me?
Gosling's rum in that thing and making it dark and stormy. You're not supposed to be putting chunks of ginger in what already is ginger beer, but great mixer though. I'm a big fan of ginger beer as a mixer. All right, but like I said, I'm not accommodating the negative Nancy and you on this one. I am racing like Secretariat to the offensive line position because there is clearly a reason to be concerned about second team deficiencies at that position. And, you bring in a couple really quality starters in Matt Lee and Javion Brown, no question about it. You still going into camp or not sure who's going to start at left tackle. Jalen Rivers looked a little challenged there. You might be pushing it to put Samson Okinola out there from the beginning of his freshman year. Zion Nelson has played there before. He hasn't played football in a long time. You're going to go out and beat Texas A&M in week 2 with Zion there at left tackle. You got some issues at left tackle, but I think across the board, you have depth issues, Matt, on the offensive line in a big time way. And if there's an Achilles heel on the offensive side of the football, I think that's it. And I think the deficiencies and in the backup department of the offensive line give total justification to the fact that we did this article in the first place.
So yeah, the whole exercise of looking at the backups is, yeah, if somebody gets hurt, are you in trouble, which you are on the offensive line. And then also for the future, how are they building the position? Where are the roster holes? And I just have a bad feeling on the offensive line that Miami probably will need more transfers next year before the class they signed in 2023 and then who they'll bring in 2024 before those guys are really, really ready to be major contributors. And, it's not a great situation, but it is what it is. And you saw last year the depth really hurt this team when you have guys like John Dennis and Logan Sagapolo and who else? There was like 3 or 4 guys that were just sort of, and even Inez Cooper is a true freshman, that were just thrust into action when they weren't ready to play. They weren't good enough to be difference makers. And you don't want that to happen again this year. So to me, you got 5 guys who I think are really, really good starters, with maybe Inez Cooper providing depth, assuming Samson Okinola steps up as a starter. And if Zion Nelson's healthy, maybe you have 7 guys, but that's about it. And you don't really want to go past that. So the depth on offensive line is not good enough.
All right, so that's going to do it for our discussion on the subject of second teamers on the offense and possible deficiencies. If you like this channel, you like our shows on YouTube, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. Helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And more than anything, please make sure you are a subscriber to CaneSport.com. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every day. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time, everybody.